Let's go.
All right. Good day, Leadership Nation. We are so glad to have you here today. And we have a special guest, a real estate professional that has built a powerhouse team of realtors, admin, stagers, a whole host of connected professionals. She's taught people how to win in real estate and how to enjoy real estate investing. And along with, I believe, public speaking, is definitely an award-winning top producing agent for Keller Williams in the world. Let me introduce to you today and welcome to the show, Lorraine Jordan. Welcome, Lorraine. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Super happy to be here.
It's so great. I'm glad that Mandy could connect us. Shout out to Mandy Branham. I'd love to start with, if you could just tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and where did you grow up, and give us a little bit of backstory.
So I'm in north of Barrie, so in the Midland Penetanguishene area, tiny township on beautiful Georgian Bay. So I'm in this area. I was born in this area. I wouldn't say I grew up here because I'm still not done growing up. Life's too much fun to grow up. Basically, I look back, I got into real estate when I was 18. The story was I worked at a little mom and pop grocery store. And every day, I just worked my way up. As a cashier, I stocked shelves, I worked in the deli, and then I was in the meat department because we had a little butcher shop. And it started off kind of as a joke where, everyone would come in and they'd say, "Oh, do you have any chicken breasts?" And it was like, that was the day we didn't have chicken breasts. So the butcher and I started a bet. And we'd be like, they're going to come in, they're going to ask for a chicken breast, but today we need to get rid of pork chops. So, every time you sell pork chops, you win, we mark it down. And at the end of the day, whoever sold the most wins the money we put in the little dish. Yeah. So we started doing that. And every day after school, I would finish work, I'd finish and go to work for 4:00. And what I started doing is I started doing this recipe. And I would go into the library because we didn't have computers then. And I would, find a magazine and I would find a recipe that looked great that would use whatever it was we needed to sell.
Right.
And I'd go get the secretary to make copies of it. And when we did that, what happened is people would come by every day and they'd come in and they'd be like, "What's for dinner, Lorraine?" And I'd have the recipe and a little package and I would sell out the pork chops.
That's great.
Yeah, it basically, they were like, "Oh, you got to get into sales. Like, you're so good at this." Yeah. So at 17, I started doing a co-op in real estate. And yeah, I've been in real estate ever since. I did my first rent to own. Well, I flipped my first property in 2000, that year, the 1988. In 1989, I did a rent to own, my first rent to own for a client. It just made sense. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of the stuff that I see now, I was doing a long time ago. So kind of cool to see the evolution.
Wow, absolutely. And I'm sure as an investor, you've obviously seen your own evolution over that time.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
There's streets that I laugh, I won't drive down because I'm like, "Oh my God, I could have bought that house for $100,000. It's worth like $450 now."
Oh, okay. So I had actually heard a little bit about this, about the grocery store. We didn't have the option back then to just go to our phones and go, "Oh, what can I make tonight?" So
yeah, it was customer service. It was solving a problem. It was marketing. Yeah. I never felt it was sales. It was, because to me, sales would have been pushy. Yeah. Whereas I just like to look at, like, I solve problems. Right. Right. I help people find solutions to what's going on in their world.
So you took that co-op. What was the transition like at that age, 18 years old, to go straight into being self-employed and starting to build your own business, especially at a time, go to school and then get a good job? So
I was supposed to get a government job.
Exactly.
Right? With a pension and
right.
Yeah, I remember my parents selling their vehicle to this dentist, and the dentist was trying to convince me that I should become a dental hygienist because, that was a great job. And I kept thinking, "Oh my goodness, like I'm this free spirit. I need to go, I don't think I ever really, I don't know. I always was a person of a mindset that I could do anything. I always
Mm-hmm.
believed I could, even as a small child, like climbing trees, whatever. I was invincible. There was nothing I couldn't do.
Right.
Um, and I had I never really thought about this until like I have 4 children. So,
Yeah.
watching them go through things and I always, like, I remember picking strawberries. I loved picking strawberries, and I pick strawberries and make like 50 cents for every quart that I picked or
Okay.
liter. And what would happen is my mindset was one day when I own a strawberry farm, I would do this with the rows. When I worked at that grocery store, my plan was to own the place. Like everything I've ever done has always been to that, you know, like even
Right.
school. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but even school, I remember thinking one day when I'm the principal, I would run it like this. And it's just the way I think my mind was programmed. Just free spirit and
Yeah.
thinking bigger. I just saw possibilities. And then when
Yeah.
I go back to that fear thing or that other part of it, the other side of, the opposite of thinking bigger, but the negative, not just always the positive.
Yeah.
As a child, I remember going over for sleepovers at friends' homes, and I had a fire route escape in my mind, even though I had never been in a fire before.
Okay. That because I one of the next question actually that I wanted to ask you was when did you start building your real estate team? And because part of me is wondering how did you grow into that? But it's interesting. You've had that big picture thinking from the get-go. So it is interesting to find out when did you after starting into real estate, when did you start building a team?
So I started building a team in, it would have been 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always had support. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
my favorite banker and I had my favorite lawyers that I
Yeah.
dealt with. So I always had that support team around me. Like I believed in that.
Yeah.
But in 2002, so I had my fourth child that year. We had
Okay.
built a brand new home. And everybody, when they would come over to visit, it was, and I was going to be off this time because so the other times I was off for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks on maternity leave, and I
Right.
would just get
Right.
another agent in the office that would partner up and take care of my business.
Right.
I always had that set up. But that year I was taking 6 months off, and that was kind of a big deal. So I had brought on an agent partner to work with, and started that. And I don't know, I mean, I had a brand new home. So anytime someone came over, they wanted to see the home, like people would pop by, and 4 kids, like, and a full-time job, like the house was kind of messy and I was always trying to keep up with it. And I knew I needed help, and I had agent help. And I mean, we had great admin support at the office, but I needed more.
Right.
And what I ended up doing was I ended up hiring someone, and their role was they would come to the office. We would work together in the morning, and then at 1 o'clock they would go to my home, and they would throw a load of laundry in. They'd have their lunch while they're there because it takes time to do laundry. They'd tidy up, all the kids' toys, and maybe that day they would wash sheets on one bed, and
Mhm.
they would prep dinner for me. So I had a schedule every night. So if that night was swimming lessons and we weren't going to be home till this time, or hockey or whatever was going on in our world, if we were going to be home early, then it would be stuff that I could finish cooking. So just veggies chopped up, a salad made. But if it was like later, there'd be something in a crock pot.
Yeah.
And the idea was just to try and, get everything done basically. And then at 3 o'clock, they would go back to the office, and they
Right.
would finish up for the end of the day and take care of what they needed to do to help out. So that was my first real true leverage.
Wow. Having your fourth child and the necessity behind it launched you into moving down the road. I like what you said in terms of realizing what you needed for your schedule, for your life. And as opposed to, oh, I've got to have this or I'm supposed to do that. What do I need for my life to work?
Well, and it's not always, I don't know, I guess maybe a bit of a trailblazer mindset. I never, I still to this day, I look for people that are doing things, better than me, or things that like, I remember a few years ago when I started running, I kept thinking like, holy cow, I've never been a runner my whole life.
Yeah.
So I had to go online and I had to find people that inspired me to believe that I could. So it's like that you can conceive it, but then you need to believe it to achieve it. So I go look for proof,
Yeah.
so that I can just, yeah, I can do this. If she can do it, I can do it.
you're building your business, you're having kids. You know, this is not a career path that you took after all of this.
No.
You started it before you had any kids and went through all of that.
Well, and it's blending, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in investing, but I believe in blending things, right? Like what everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everyone, I always say it's about people and relationships, but it's about people because everybody's different. Everybody has a different relationship to things. So,
Hmm.
one of the parts of my life that I always say really changed my real estate career was even before having the team was on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would take those days off. They were swimming lesson days when we had two little boys.
Yeah.
And what would happen is we would go to swimming lessons, we'd go grab pizza and we'd have pizza in the park. And we just spent this wonderful day together, right?
Hmm.
As a family. And what happened is that meant on Monday, I had to get my work done because Tuesday I wasn't going to be there, right?
Right.
And that really made a difference in my career. The other thing is it did, so the procrastination,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you're motivated and inspired, you have something else to do. It just helps you get things done quicker. Because again, big picture thinker. It's like, oh, squirrel, right? There's a lot of squirrels and a lot of shiny pennies out there.
Yes.
So that really helped me to focus and prioritize. Also, it made a difference with the guilt.
Right.
As a parent in the business, there's that, oh, I should be working more. Oh, I should be at home more. Oh, I should. And you know what? This kind of just took care of that. I was, when I was with my family, I was with my family. When I was at work, I was at work. Every once in a while they crisscrossed a little bit, but it helped me to put stronger boundaries because I knew what was important and I didn't feel guilty.
Right. That is a real challenge for a lot of people, right? When it comes
Well,
to
and you
this
adjust.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah, like when my children were older, in summertime, I would get up really early because they
Mhm.
would sleep in till 11, right? And I'd get all my work done between 5 and 11.
Yeah.
Um, Showing started at 8:39, and then I always had leverage then
Right.
because, but I felt there was no guilt because I
Right.
knew I did my work already.
Right.
I got that
Absolutely.
done, so there's no, and it's funny, but the harder I worked, the luckier I got.
Okay. So, can you share some challenges in growing your
We don't have
business?
enough time.
I'm sure there's many, but I guess perhaps some of the challenges before having a team and then maybe some after the lead.
Before having a team was often when you had somebody else help you with business. If it was somebody really busy, then they were busy doing their own thing, so that didn't work. So you'd have to kind of get somebody that was not super slow, because unless they were really coachable and they spent time with you, and that's kind of, you pick someone in the middle. And
Mhm.
in the end, if they had their own business show up on the weekend, your client was put on the back burner and their client was
Mm.
first.
Right.
And I always found that was a real challenge. Also, it was like, they don't think the same way I do. They don't
Mm.
handle this the same way I do. They're not as great at this as I am. And I'm not someone that brags a lot, but you could see the results. The results
Right.
were different.
Right.
So that was a challenge. So having a team enabled me to coach and train people,
Hmm.
and have them learn the strategies and the different ways that I do things. Like I'm fantastic in a multiple offer presentation. I have great strategies if I'm working for the buyer or the seller. Like there's just some
Yeah.
really cool things that I do that, even when I've trained people, sometimes I guess I'm good at training because it's worked out. A lot of people after being with us for a while believe like, hey, I can go do this on my own now because
Right.
I've learned all of this. And as much as that's hurtful, I would say that's probably one of the hardest things is when
Mhm.
you train somebody, you have a big picture plan for them, and then they see a shortcut, a detour, a different way,
Yeah.
and they leave. And in the beginning, that used to be, and sometimes it still is, a bit of a punch in the stomach. And, you're kind of like, wait a minute, I had a plan and I had this big vision and I can help you do this. Um, that's a challenge. My 11-year-old son, one time I went home and I was really disappointed that somebody that I really cared for and saw what was possible with him had left the team. And my son came over and curled up on the couch with me, and he was 11 at the time, and he said, the big picture doesn't fit on everybody's wall. That still hangs in my office today. That was huge. And he's right. Like, sometimes I'm creating this big vision. I'm thinking everybody wants to come along, and they're like, okay, this is good. I'm happy with where I don't need to grow. This is beyond maybe my comfort zone. This is maybe, this is so much more than what I ever expected. And this is good enough. This is where I get off. I'm happy with this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's their prerogative. I mean, I've had people that have worked at Walmart, hairdressers, factory, like you name it, that I just pursued and said, hey, like, real estate will change your life. Like, this will be a whole new career opportunity for you. And it has been. I've had people cry, go, I never imagined that I would make this much money. I never imagined I'd have this lifestyle. Thank you. And, in the end, sometimes when people leave, you kind of, like I said, it's hard, but it's like, I got involved with them because I wanted to give them this opportunity.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
But for a couple of days, you kind of just want to lay in bed and sulk and go, oh my God, I helped you get here. Why would you do this? But in the end, I mean, I set out to accomplish something, and that worked out, and the big picture doesn't fit on everyone's wall. So I just need to go find some more people that want to, that have a wall big enough to.
Well, it's very interesting, because many times professionals can get to a point where they've invested so much of themselves into people that they decide, no, you're just another person that's going to come and take for me, and they hold them people at bay at that point. And so I really, what your son shared is really resonating for me, and I think it's amazing. How have you been able to, obviously you're a visionary, but how have you been able to take that? Because you're in an industry just by itself that can recycle, or a lot of people can come in and leave, and then how does that impact you? How have you been able to really stay with that and go, okay, you know what? It's going to come. The pain's going to come, but I'm going to keep doing this.
It's definitely, like, it's the hardest. I mean, I've lost staff over the years that, I've gone home at 3:00 in the afternoon and just cried and went to bed, and just, nothing. I believe that nothing that a good night's sleep won't fix.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, sitting with it. I mean, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost a lot of people along the way that I loved and cared for, and, wanted nothing but the best for, but everybody has their own destination.
Right.
That saying, that quote, has made a massive difference for me, for sure. The other thing is, it's weird, but for the longest time I was fueled by, I'll show you.
Right.
And that would put me into, and I mean, I'll show you has empowered me, right? It's like, oh, okay, you're leaving. Well, I'm going to book 4 listing appointments tonight and replace you. But that would go back to my landmark education, which we talked about before.
Yes.
Which was, I don't need anyone. I can do this on my own, which is such the opposite of what I truly believe, because I truly believe in teamwork.
Right.
Right. Team together, everyone achieves more. Like, I live by that. I mean, I'm not great at everything, but somebody else is great at something that I'm weak at. So, like implementers, I love implementers. I'm always looking for implementers. As far as I'm concerned, that, you can have all the visions you want, but without people that can help you implement, you're not getting anywhere.
Right.
So, no, it's definitely been a challenge. It's definitely a mind shift. I go back to a couple years ago. I hired 2 agents. We recruited 2 agents the same week. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they were both amazing. Like, I'm like, holy cow, these guys are great, great, different backgrounds, but like success and outgoing, and like, they just fit everything that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Culturally, they were easygoing, happy, like everything made sense. They were kind, they wanted to make a difference. So they fit the team perfectly. They had the same training, everything, went along the same. Like 7, 8 months later, the one guy was completely out of the business, just hated it, didn't work, didn't click, wasn't good at
Mm,
selling anything. And the other guy ended up being like the top agent in the office the next year. Trying to remember, I think he did like in his first full year, I think it was like 40 some odd transactions.
wow.
Like just and I thought, holy cow, like this has happened before. But normally I'll go, okay, well, because I own everything. I don't blame. I always go, okay, what's my responsibility?
Right.
How do I fit in? What could I do different? Everything's a learning opportunity. And I looked at it and went, like, what's the difference here? Right? They both got trained at the exact same time, the exact same way. There was no like, oh, that was spring, this was fall. Like there was nothing like that.
Right.
And I went on this really big, like, why for 6, 7 months. I was researching, I was obsessed with it. And in the end, it's mindset. It was between scarcity and abundance.
Right.
One guy was trying real estate, the other guy got in it to crush it.
Right. Wow. That's great. From the leadership aspect, I really appreciate what you shared there, because in leading, there were ups and downs. There was
Oh,
some real heartache that you just shared, and I think to be able to move through that, and to be able to see that, to have the big vision, but at the same time, uh, be able to move through the daily struggles, that's really powerful. And then you summed it up with that very story, which was scarcity or abundance.
you get
And
to choose.
yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. And so would you say, in being a leader in your life and for your team, that has been a key factor for you, is being able to see that abundance? Or because you also mentioned about the negative side, right? And the I'll show you. And I understand that one as well.
Yeah. So like I've done, to all the Tony Robbins training and
Okay.
volunteer and stuff like that. And one of the big, so first of all, mindset, like I am always learning, I am always reading, I'm always at a seminar, an event, like um, there, it's sustainability,
Right.
because it's a muscle.
Right.
Your brain is still a muscle as far as I'm concerned. You have to practice mindfulness and having an abundance mindset and not going to scarcity. I mean, especially right now in the pandemic, a lot of people like, ooh, scarcity, scarcity. And I mean, I go there too, right? Like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with this? What's going to happen this fall? What's going to happen with, investing? What's going to, and you're there, but you have to bring it back and get back to that abundance and
Mhm.
just believe that, there's things that are going to work out. Being a leader, I would say, like my thing for Tony Robbins was growth. Like I love growth. Growth
Mhm.
is pure joy for me, happiness, whatever. But then growth has growing pains,
Right.
right? Everything
Right.
has that positive, negative, what we perceive as positive or negative. So when
Right.
something bad goes wrong, my mindset automatically, first of all, I take get the wind knocked out of me. I take some deep breaths, right? Same idea. And then it's like, okay, what's the lesson to be learned here?
Right.
And how can I, what do I need to learn? How can I do things better and, go back to abundance?
Yeah. That's great. That's wonderful. Um, okay. So now, where did investing fit into that? How did you, I mean, you've already professional in your career, and now before you even started building a team, you started investing. And so, but you're having kids now too. How'd you, how did you do that?
So most of the investing was, like I said, the first thing I bought was a vacant lot.
Mm,
I don't know, it just looked like a deal, and so I bought it. At the time, I didn't have enough money to buy it cash because I was 18.
yeah.
I convinced one of the other agents in the office to lend me the money and go partners with me on it. We paid 18,000, so this is a long time ago.
Yes.
We paid 18,000 for it, and we sold it for 32,000 2 days after closing. And I'm like, wow, this is great. I want to do this more often.
Yes.
Um, and then we bought, and then the market started to tank, and so we learned a lot about that,
Hmm.
and how things can change beyond what you ever imagined, and then how they can turn around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I started buying then, and then once you had kids, it was harder to find time to invest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just because you weren't sleeping, thinking right,
Yeah.
to go in and do the work physically yourself anymore, like to paint and renovate, because we did a lot of that ourselves.
Yeah.
You didn't have time. You couldn't do it in the house you lived in because you couldn't have a
Mhm.
baby in the drywall dust and that sort of thing. I mean,
Right.
drywall
Right.
dust is
Real
everywhere.
life. Real life.
Yeah, real
Yeah.
life. So now I understand the value of a team.
Right.
So kind of, again, there's your positive, also doing the drawback. You can do the work, so why
Yeah.
would you pay people to do the work?
Right.
Well, now it makes sense. Like I invest in Montreal right now. I met a great young man down at a Tony Robbins event, and I thought, holy cow, you're in your 20s and you're at a Tony Robbins event, business
Yeah.
mastery. What are you going to do with your life?
Wow.
So we just stayed in touch for like 3 years, back and forth. I was just mentoring him because I had different experiences. Went to visit him a couple times, and I went, oh my gosh, like he was showing me what he was doing in renos, and so we started investing. I mean, I'm real estate, and I've purchased 3 homes that I've never seen.
Right.
And and we do right now. We're flipping. We have a couple projects we've held, but like we're doing it the way that like I'm not competing with my clients here because I never want to be that person. If I see a good deal, right now, for instance, Mandy, it's like she's the first person I call because she's been a loyal, great client, and my goal is to build her portfolio. That's my role in her life, right? But by buying over there, I'm not competing.
Right. Right.
So, and then I got to learn more about great leverage.
Yeah.
And we do things like we do
And you
amazing.
can't go over there and do any of the work, even if you have the skills. Too far away.
Right. And this is the interesting part. I hire people that can do it better than me.
Brilliant.
So that's something that I've learned in life that from that experience is look for people that can do things better, always. Sometimes people get it. And I probably was like that a long time ago where, I was intimidated. I didn't want somebody better than me. Then I'm not, the leader anymore. Well, that's not true. Like always look for people that are better than you. The properties we do there, like we do incredible, incredible. They're stunning. They're magazine quality when we're done. We do things like, to give you an idea of how far we go with it, if we think somebody's going to use a room in the basement one day as a bedroom instead of an office, even though there's no closet because of whatever, it just didn't make sense. The window, we will replace the window and put a larger window in there just in case somebody's ever sleeping in that room.
Right. Wow.
Like that's who we are as people.
Right.
And it just, there's business relationships where you're kind of, and that one there just feels right.
Right.
We're all on the same page. We all care about so much more than, just flipping for a quick buck.
Right.
Like we're building a reputation. We're building, something that we're proud of.
Absolutely.
Every house has the same house number on it so that we will always be like, we did that one and that one and that one, not want to show people or share people the projects that we did.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The have the forethought when you go into each location or each home and think what's the best, highest use? How are the people going to use it? That's really powerful.
Yeah, and everybody's doing what they love to do. Like
Yeah.
the contractors, we're not micromanaging them. They know like we're not doing the lipstick and mascara kind of flips. Like I was in one of those yesterday, and I'm looking at this house and I'm thinking,
Right.
wow, when I see something like the garage roof has curling shingles on it, and this is a flip house,
Right.
what do you have hidden behind the walls?
Right. Absolutely. If that's what you can see before you've even stepped
Right.
inside. Yeah.
I look at that and I think, wow, this is a quick flip. This flooring, is it over top of mold? Like what's really happening with this house?
Yeah.
Whereas, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to be involved in. I love this other project. Like it makes me proud.
Yeah.
And the people involved, like, they're just fantastic. They care deeply about other people. It's about people and relationships.
Yeah.
We bought one of the homes and it was like, they were so happy to see the transformation of the other home on the street. And this was their parents' home. that they were excited to sell to us because they knew what we would do to it. And that's what it is. And my partner's wife, who was also a partner in this, she just has incredible taste and style and design. And, it's like we just let her loose to do her thing. And every time, like, I don't pick anything. She does. And everything looks stunning. Like I said, it's magazine quality.
Wow.
So something to be proud of.
Well, now you mentioned something there that I'd like to just touch on. Last question here in the leadership portion. You mentioned about mentoring, and you clearly mentor so many people to a point where it's caused a lot of pain for you over the years. But so now for Lorraine Jordan, where does she go for mentorship? What does she do at this point for in all of your success? What do you do for mentorship?
Constantly. Everything from um, uh, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell. I've done all the programs through both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Philip McKernan. I've been to Ireland. I've been to India with Philip. I'm constantly looking for inspiration and mentorship. I mean, Gary Keller at Keller Williams he's a pure genius. I mean, he's incredible. So in real estate, I do have my real estate coach, Marianne Gillespie, who's, use the word tyrant. But yeah, you're constantly looking for it. I struggle with coaching because I have a belief that coaching is just like pushing and reliving the same thing over and over again. Whereas mentorship is somebody is seeking you out with questions, and you kind of put that question back on them, and you help them like, okay, well, you're asking me for advice, what would you do? And then they tell you, and then you go from there. So around the same time as I met my partner in Montreal, I met another gentleman, and I remember same age group. And I remembered about 2 years in, his goal was to buy like $100 million worth of real estate. And he called me one day, and he was at 16 homes between September and I think December. And his mom was a mortgage broker, and he was in real estate.
Right.
And he said, "Oh my God, my mom is freaking out. I'm buying too many homes. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, like, she's just freaking out. And I said, "You know what? I want to think about this one, and I'll get back to you in a couple of days." He said, "What? Like, we usually just have this talk every Friday morning, And I said, "No, I just really want to think about this." So he's like, "Okay." So a couple of days later, I called him, and he said, "What was that all about?" I said, "Well, my initial instinct is to tell you, yeah, that's too many homes. Like you're really stretching things. Like, this is getting really scary."
Right.
That's my initial mom reaction, right?
Right.
But over here, I'm like, "Oh my God, who doesn't wish that they would have bought more homes?"
Right.
Right?
Right.
I haven't met anybody that's that is in the investing world that
Yeah.
doesn't go, "Man, I wish I would have bought 16 homes in 3 months,
Yeah.
when I was in my 20s." So I said, I really wanted to think about it. And then I said, "Here's how you're going to do it." And I said, "We're going to add a life insurance policy to all of this." And I started explaining how, I got this idea, we can do this, and this is what will happen, and your mom will feel better, and this, and, and if you add this policy, if you go bankrupt, it can't be touched. And you know what I mean? And I explained,
Right.
because at first he's like, "You know how old I am, right? Because life insurance is not something on a 20 some odd year old's mind."
Right.
Again, something I wish I would have bought more of when I was in my 20s. But I said it all, I explained it to him, and he was like, "Wow, that makes sense." And, he went on and kept buying, and, what he's accomplished is just incredible. And, I remember him asking me, like, "Why do you do this?" And I said, "What?" He goes, like, "Why do we have these calls? Like, why do you take the time?" And I said, "Because it's a chance to relive what I've done and, make an impact." Because I'm like, okay, I made these mistakes. Maybe you can, don't take that detour, come and take this road. It might be a little longer, but it's going to get you there quicker in the end.
Right.
So
wow.
It's kind of a neat gift to be able to relive. So mentoring to me is people approach you because they want to make a difference. They have questions, they have ideas. They're like, "Can I do this?" And it's my opportunity to show them how they can do it. So now they can believe and they can go make it happen.
Wow. That is very thoughtful. That is very thoughtful, and it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that aspect of even being able to relive that, um, because it's a pain point, right? Like some of those things might have been pain points, and so you're now able to help someone navigate around or through that pain point, and that's fantastic. Yeah, I
Well, and
suppose
they're
that is
invincible.
part of it, right?
Yeah, and in the same token, they're invincible. So by taking the experience and taking invincible, like so many people are so hard on millennials, and I think, like, I mean, first of all, we created them
Yes,
to a certain extent,
yes,
and
that's
older
right.
created them, and I look at it and go, but wow, like they have priorities in place. They
Yes,
do have boundaries. We were workaholics, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not doing that. So
yeah,
it's that combination. So for me, it's like if you can respect that. So they both, everyone like that I had going on with that, they respected that I had knowledge, and I
yeah.
respected their, that invincible, I can do anything, I will do anything,
Hmm.
and eagerness. So by respecting both of those and bringing them together, to me, that's where the magic happens.
Wow, that is very powerful. Thank you. I'm gonna stop us at this point with that, because that's very powerful for me, and having teenagers myself right now, so I'm gonna let that one sit. But we're gonna move over to the wealth building portion now, and we'll get into some strategies and some of the things that you teach when it comes to investing and making money in real estate. So let's go over to that now.
Change hats, same hat.
All right. Okay. Welcome back to the Leadership to Wealth podcast. Our guest today, world renowned real estate leader of Team Jordan. We have Lorraine Jordan. Thank you so much for all that you shared in the leadership portion. And now we get into the wealth building, the money, the how do you do it, and the wealth building portion. So thank you again for being on the show today, Lorraine. Now, I've got to ask you a question before we really get into that. Obviously, realtors are always going to try to learn from you. So I got to ask a question for the realtors out there that are listening. What's available for realtors in real estate? Because there's some at the top that are probably aware of that, but can you share, give as a visionary, can you share a little bit of what's available?
What do you mean by what's available?
For someone that's coming into the business that wants to be a realtor, or maybe is just starting out, because we talked in the first half about having an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. So for a professional, for a realtor that's in the business, what vision would you share with them that, hey, I know you're coming in and you just want to sell a house, but here's so much more that you could have?
Definitely, it's that slow down in order to speed up.
Okay.
So there is so much information out there. It's like investing. There's so much different information out there. Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. And also the freedom of it. So as we mentioned in the last one, it's kind of like freedom can be your enemy, or it can be the benefit. Like I look at real estate and I go, wow, real estate is the opportunity to work overtime as much as you possibly want and get paid really well for it.
Yeah.
If you're getting into real estate because you like the lifestyle of the freedom and you work whenever you want to, and that's your belief system, that's possible. But there's a reason why the industry average is 4 sales a year.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the average, is to sell 4 homes a year, average. So that means there's a lot of people out there that are selling 1 and 2 homes a year. And in my opinion, if you're selling 1, 2 homes a year, you have, I don't know, it's like anything. What kind of experience do you have? You want a surgeon
Mhm.
operating on you that does 1 or 2 surgeries a year, or do you want someone that does hundreds?
Right.
I've averaged 100 deals in my career for years and years and years, including running my team.
Hmm.
I mean, for 7 years, I was stuck, I felt, selling about 179 homes on average per year, with 1 or 2 other people working with me.
Right.
So, you know, anything's possible. Income wise, yeah, I mean, sky's the limit. There's a really reason why there's a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It lays it all out. It lays out the foundation. I mean, people on my team, I had somebody that would take 14 weeks off. They'd go south in the wintertime for an extended period of time. And they were still averaging almost 60 sales a year by doing that, because again, it's leverage.
Right.
The most I've had is somebody in their first year do 84 transactions.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, and again, you know, 60, 40, on average, I would say our agents on average are 40 transactions a year. That's what the number that we've had.
Right.
And again, it's on leverage. I believe it's leverage, it's mindset, it's skills, strategies, you know, like anything. If you want to do something great, go find somebody that's done it really well on a high
Mm-hmm.
level and learn from them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Someone who's done something great, got into obviously varied investing. What do you teach people when it comes to real estate investing, making the money?
So I'm really big on each individual person. So it's not like I'm, you know, oh, we're going to do the Burr model and everyone's going to buy, renovate, you know, rent, refinance, and redo, right? It's a great strategy, but what is your skill set and what are you trying to achieve?
Right.
Right? Are you looking to pay your mortgage off in 10 years? Are you looking to, you know, buy a house instead of an RESP for your children's education? Are you looking to be a millionaire by the time you're age 30? Like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you're trying to do, I want to sit down. I want to understand who you are. I want to understand why you want to invest, what the purpose is, what the end goal is, right? Let's start with the end in mind and back up and make that plan each step by step. And for some people, it's like they just think they should invest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've read some books, they've heard some things. You know, their friend had a house, and you know, maybe they have no skill set. They know nothing about contracting whatsoever, and that makes them nervous. And it's like, okay, well, let's start over here. So if you're going to, for instance, you have a parent that's going to rent in the near future. Why don't we start with a small bungalow or a condo that you're going to be able to rent to them, because now you already have the tenant. So if you're afraid of tenants, you're not sure about property management, like whatever your situation is, I'm going to help adapt it. I get a lot of people that we start with a cottage.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because we live in cottage country, but we'll
Right.
get a cottage somewhere. And maybe it's not in this area, it might be further north or, you know, east, west, whatever they're looking for.
Right.
And we'll start with a cottage. And it's like, okay, well, here's your investment because you get to use it.
Right.
So it's like, for some people, it's like, it's pleasure as well as investment.
Right.
So for me, it's about the experience.
Right.
So yeah,
Because you talked about enjoying real estate, right?
Yeah.
You talked about
I
that.
love real estate.
Yeah.
And I want other people to experience that. You know, it's not a number on a computer screen or on a piece of paper that says, oh, I have this much in my RESP or my RSP or, you know, my stocks or whatever. It's like, have fun with it, you know, buy something that you're going to enjoy. I get people, like, one of the strategies might be, you know, they're at that age where it's like, oh, I wish I would have bought. Now I don't have a lot of time to buy. Well, what if you bought the house that you're going to live in retirement now? You know, and so now you have your asset over here that's paid off. We're going to refinance it. We're going to buy this asset because this is where you're going to live later.
Right.
And now you're going to have two assets appreciating at the same time.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so I'm really, really, you know, there's that whole, if you help enough people get what they want,
yes,
that gets you what you want. And that's, I don't know, I'm very much a servant, leader or real estate agent, you know, and God, I've sold thousands and thousands of investment properties. I've owned multis. I've flipped homes. I never get anyone to do anything I wouldn't do. So, you know, when we were kind of running out of bungalows to Burr, because it was, you know, everybody was buying them in 2017. It was crazy. I'm like, hey, I'm going to take this 2-story home and I'm going to split it differently and see what that looks like.
Right.
So I went and did that. And then I come back and I'm like, hey guys, look at this new idea and let's do this.
Right.
So a lot of that, I have clients that I got over there to sell their home, and I've talked them out of selling their home, and I've convinced them to duplex their home and get that
Right.
income. Let's
Right.
refinance, let's do this, let's bring some people in, and let's get you some leverage.
Right. So it's really about finding out what works for a person specifically. What are they really looking for, and then tailoring it to them.
Yeah, I mean, because you might read, there's classes for everything. I mean, you know, I always laugh about this, especially right now. I always say, back in the day,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, um,
My kids hate me when
when,
I say that.
yeah, back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the land.
That's right.
I had a buddy that, I mean, he used to buy investment properties. He used to always say, anything your husband won't let you buy, call me, I'll buy it. Right. And we joke around. And I would call him, and I mean, he bought so many homes sight unseen because I said he should buy them, and he'd say, "Oh, do up the offer. What should we pay?" And I'd go, "Let's put it in at this much." He's like, "Okay." And I mean, we did a lot of great investment properties together. And our saying was, when school teachers start buying, it's time to get out, because the market has become so confident,
Right.
right? That, people that are very analytical and analyze everything and, typically are a little more concerned and more conservative are starting to buy.
Yeah.
It's time to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get all these people like, oh, prices can't go any higher. Prices can't go any higher. Well, they have. They
Mm-hmm.
always seem to go higher. They
Mm-hmm.
might drop for a little while, but they always go higher.
Right.
Whereas the gift right now is there's so many support groups.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
call it support
Yeah.
groups, but I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, you
Networking
can take
groups.
a class,
Yeah.
you podcast,
Yeah.
like you can go to groups, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, okay, well, you can still buy, but only buy if it fits this criteria.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Uh,
yeah,
is
so I think that's cool, but I think for me, it's understanding what's right for you, because it's not the same for everybody. And
mm-hmm.
sometimes it's partnering up. Like sometimes I'll take a long-term investor with a new client that wants to start investing and bring them together, because it's like, this is what's best for you.
Yeah.
This is going to be the easiest. And yeah, oh, you're only going to get half the pie. Well, think bigger than that.
Yeah.
Because half the pie, 4 times is more than one pie.
Right.
It's 2 pies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, getting people to think bigger.
Wow. So not only can people come to Team Jordan for buying and selling their homes, but for real estate investing as well, and probably some life planning there too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for sure. I mean, I mentioned
I mean,
life
out at the
insurance.
cottage while sweeping the deck.
Yes. And brainstorming.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even bringing in the life insurance. I mean, I
Right.
think it's kind of a cool way to bring your money into life insurance and then take it out and go in and invest so that you have that extra layer of protection.
Right. Right.
So,
So I've got to ask, because your Team Jordan is this is interesting. I was talking to my daughter the other day about your name precedes you. Your name goes into a room before you get there, and Team Jordan has really your name precedes you. Your team really has been doing a bang up job, and I'm not even a realtor, and even I've heard of Team Jordan, even if I haven't, and all the way in my neck of the woods, right? Because I'm east of Toronto, but I got to ask, because there's got to be some secret sauce here. How do you build this team? How do you build this team?
so first of all, one of the biggest things when you were saying that whole, your name,
Yeah.
if you pay attention to a lot of teams,
Yeah.
it's the Jordan team.
Okay.
I believe that it's Team Jordan because my team comes first.
Wow.
Right? So it's like, what do they want to achieve? What do they want to do? How can I serve them? How can I help them be the best version of themselves? I've spent a lot of time, I would say, I see potential in people. So it's like, if they can believe it and they want to implement what I have to teach, it's endless. Like there's,
Right.
That one guy I was telling you about with the 16 home. I mean, yeah, you want to buy 100 homes in 1 year, I'll lay it out and, let's figure out how to make that happen. It's all about that. And I would say attracting people or seeing people and just seeing the talent in them and just keep having conversations with them.
Right.
I mean, the top agent that I had on my team last year, I mean, he bought an investment property from me, you know, and I'm like, dude, like you should be in real estate, like, you know, because as much as investing's an amazing opportunity, and I wholeheartedly believe in it, I also believe that real estate in itself as a career. Now, if you just want to if you're at a stage where you just want to invest, you definitely, I don't believe in getting your license if that's your focus.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're two separate things. People think, oh, if I get into real estate, I'm going to get all these deals. I'm going to know about them first. I'm going to buy.
Right.
And that's possible, but some of that is can be a little bit of a thin line. Like I said, I buy 6.5 hours away.
Right.
Because I'm not competing with my community, my clients. I just don't believe in that.
Right. Right.
You know, every investment property I bought in the last few years, I bought because there was an issue that they needed solved, and I was the solution. You know, somebody that wanted to buy this house quickly, you know, they're going through cancer treatment. My investors aren't, you know, they don't want to pay that for it, but they need that in order to get the next house. And I'm like, okay, if I buy this, I'm still going to cash flow $400 a month. It's not 5 like they're looking for, it's 4. I think 4 is a pretty good number.
Yeah. Okay, well, then I've got to ask the question, if because you pointed out about being a real estate professional, how does someone become really good as a real estate professional? How does someone separate themselves? Well, first of all, you live north of GTA. You guys are north and of Toronto and that, and you're actually up by Barrie.
We do Barrie.
Right?
We do Barrie. Yeah.
Collingwood,
Collingwood, Saga, really.
Yeah. And so, which is really, if people don't realize, that's really powerful to have the team and to do the numbers and the volume that you do in that area. The vast majority of the top producers would be in the major urban centers, and you're not in a major urban center, and you're still doing these type of numbers. So the question I would first ask is there a difference between being out there as a real estate professional versus being in the major urban centers?
No, not at all. I get asked that all the time. Oh, you're in a small town, everybody knows you. Oh my gosh, you could go to a neighborhood and farm a neighborhood like door knock, or, you know what I mean, get involved in a neighborhood, and one little couple blocks has more population than my whole town does.
Right.
So again, excuses. I think it's around, I mean, I really learned over the last few years that it's strategy. I would say that the difference that I don't know why anybody would try to do real estate on their own right now. I really don't. I've tried to understand it. If I relocated to another area, I mean, I would definitely join a team. I believe that, like, you can't do it all. You know, I always talk about when I first got into real estate, you know, we put up a sign, we put it in this big, thick book, you know, we put it in the newspaper, like we did 3-4 things.
Yeah.
Now for every single listing, there's over 200 different things that we do to promote that house, or steps that we need to take.
Wow.
Right? So you can't do that on your own. You know, I had an agent say, oh my God, you put your houses on Kijiji. Like, why would you do that? That's where you sell lawnmowers and, you know, bicycles. And I'm like, you know what? We still get, like, it's still eyeballs on it. Like, you're still doing a lot of different things to make that happen. And he goes, yeah, but why bother? He goes, how many homes did you sell last year from Kijiji? And I said, well, it's hard to tell, because maybe they went to Kijiji, then they went to your website, or they called, or they, you know, whatever. And he goes, come on. He goes, I know you, you know. And I started laughing. I said, okay, we sold 4 directly from Kijiji.
Right.
And he's like, big deal, 4. Well, that's still 4 deals that I was able to track, and 4 sellers that are happy that I sold their home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not like I'm staying up till 2 a.m. putting it on Kijiji. I have someone who does that.
Right.
So it's about leverage. You know, some people get caught up in the, oh, I'm paying, you know, I'm giving away most of my, or half or whatever, they're giving away a portion of their commission to the team. Well, you know what, you're spending 30% minimum if you're doing any kind of a decent job, likely
Right.
closer to 40 if you're, doing a great job for your
Right.
client on
Right.
expenses. So that in itself is one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we're Team Jordan, we promote our agents.
Right.
So our signs have their face on it. They're open house signs. We do videos with the other agents. It's not all about me. It never has been. It's
Right.
about me helping others achieve their goals.
Right.
And, I do real estate I'm interested in different towns and cities, and I have a great referral network, so I do have agents in other areas that I'll send business to. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we're definitely in a growth period now. I want to do some things that are different. I know I can make a bigger impact because I see the difference of a great real estate agent versus someone who's good, who's, in it as, I don't know. I had somebody ask me once, what else do you do? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, what else do you do? I said, well, I'm an investor, and they're like, no, like, what other job do you do? And I don't understand. And she said, well, my one friend's a real estate agent, but she's also a hairdresser. My other friend's a real estate agent, and she does this. And my other friend, and I'm like, good God, no. Like, I still look at it like 80 hours isn't enough
Right. Right.
to do it
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
So,
The difference between it being a hobby and being a
yeah.
professional in the industry.
Well, and it's like a friend of mine went to see, she went to see Andrea Bocelli
Oh
in
yeah.
Italy.
Yeah.
And she had like this meet and greet package.
Yeah.
And so she arrived early, and they did the meet and greet, and he was up on stage practicing.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've ever heard the man sing, you would think that it's just a gift and he's, it just comes natural, but he practices every single day. So if you want to be great at something, you need to be doing it every single day.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a legend,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, I think that there's some gift to it, but to me, my gift has always been that people understand that I'm genuine and I care about them and I have their best interest at heart.
Yeah. That's interesting. Because obviously being on the financing side, I get people asking me about how do you do that? How do you get good at it? And I'll always say the same thing. You've got to get through as many as you can. You got to be able to see these deals because you need to be able to create even. And so you can't just see one deal a month. You've got to be able to see so many more, so that you can understand what's available and what options you have and be able to do that. So it is really hard to try to do it part-time. I know that might be a reality for some people where they start off part-time, and but I appreciate what you're saying about number one, set yourself up with a teams. And I guess this is going to be a little bit different of wealth building, perhaps for real estate professionals. Hey, get your mindset right and get with a good team. But maybe we can do something else for them here. I want to ask the question, you've got team, what about self-promotion for a real estate professional? Because I actually noticed something. I noticed as I was doing some research about you, I noticed that there's Team Jordan, but I thought, look at this. Here's a leader. She's going out, and a lot of people are interviewing you, and you've obviously, as a leader, you're going to take all the questions. You're doing all of these. You're doing this interview right now and not being paid for it, right? So there's also a certain amount of self-promotion that you've got to do, and not talking about, hey, look at how amazing I am, but even to build in your business, you've got to be able to do some sort of self-promotion. Where does that fit in for a real estate professional?
That's to me, that's always been community involvement, giving back. That's always been the forefront. We've always done things to give back to the community, be involved in the community, support wherever we need to support. I mean, that's where, to me, self-promotion. I've never been, it's funny because I've hired marketing people in the past and they're like, you need to talk more about yourself. You need to share. And I'm like, but it's about the team. I don't want everyone to call and just ask for me. I mean, I have great, very competent, amazing people on my team.
Yeah.
So it's not always about getting me. It's about getting the service that Team Jordan represents.
Right. Right.
Right.
I,
So yeah, it's more about like that giving back part of it.
right. Right. Now with social media, have you grown into a social media presence in terms of, hey, we need to do live events, or on Facebook, or that kind of stuff? Do you promote that?
We've done some of that. Again, my big challenge was mostly promoting the team, but
Mhm.
now we're at a stage where I'm really passionate about investing. And
Yeah.
I really want to help, like, first-time home buyers. That's my first strategy. It's like, oh my goodness, as a first-time home buyer, buy an investment property. You
Yeah.
know, buy a home that the investors don't want because it's underperforming, and move into one of the units and fix it up and be proud of fixing it up, you
Right.
know? And I believe we're at an era right now where this generation is really open to that. It's
Hmm.
not the same as before where it's like, no, I want the house with the granite and, the marble and the slate and the triple car garage as my first home. We're at another generation right now where they're more open to, the possibilities in growing this portfolio together. And I don't know, I just find that exciting. And the more I attract people like that, the more I want to get out there and, give a shout out and say, oh my gosh, like everybody should be investing in real estate. Like,
Right.
a real estate agent that doesn't own investment properties, I mean, there's something wrong with that. I mean,
Right.
it's what we do. Like, goodness, like look at what the market's done. Pull up a chart. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's sure there's been some little dips, and sure there's a possibility we're gonna have another little dip, but it always goes up,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Well, as they say, the best time to buy real estate was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now.
Yeah, and I'll tell people, young people, I'll say, okay, give me your parents' address, your grandparents' address, whatever, and we'll pull it up, and I'll go, what do you think your parents' house is worth right now? And they'll say like 600 or something, and I'll go, look, they paid 180 for it
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
in this time frame. What
Right.
would this do for you if you could do this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's a big one that I've got to ask you is, if you had to start over again, what would you do to get started, both professionally or with
I
your
would have
team? What would you do if you had to start over again?
I would have bought more real estate faster, sooner, and I wouldn't have sold them. I would have never have sold anything. So I would have bought better.
Yes.
I think that's the secret to everything, is thinking even bigger for long term. So for instance, if I look at the first place I bought, it had a crawl space.
Yes.
It's like, well, if I would have saved up a little bit more money, I could have bought a home with a full basement that then could have had 2 units in it instead of just, my first house being the bungalow.
Right.
And I'm not a fan of crawl spaces because pipes can freeze, and there's just different issues.
Right.
I prefer a home with a full basement.
Right.
So I would have saved a little more, and I would have bought a little bigger,
Mm-hmm.
um, or just a little better as far as the style goes. I would have kept them. I would have never sold, but because I bought those other ones and they were a little bit of a headache, I sold them. Where if you start with bigger and better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then as far as team building, if you're going to build a team, I believe that the secret is the first person you hire should be the person that can run your whole company.
Whoa.
So instead of hiring, like I look at my first assistant, I mean, she was a client of mine. She was laid off. She wasn't working. There was no risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I hired her and I thought, worst case scenario, if I can't afford her or this doesn't work out, I didn't take her from a great job.
Right. Right.
Right. Because
Yeah.
that's a lot
Yeah.
of pressure. Whereas now I would change that. I would go after the best darn person I could find. And I'm always looking for the best darn people I can
Right.
find.
You pursue, realtors now. You pursue good agents.
Well, and you know what? I'd also like to think that I'm going to attract them because I
Right.
really do
Right.
care. But I don't want to coach them. I don't want to save anybody that's not doing well. That's not what I'm looking for. I've done a
Right.
lot of
Right.
that my whole career. I
Right.
think I've given back a lot.
Right.
What I'm looking for now is, it's weird. I don't know. I just feel that I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of strategies that I would love to share. And I'm looking for people like, I look at the impact that those two guys, you know, what the
Yes.
impact I've had and a few other people over the years. And I go, wow, I just want to attract a larger audience of those kinds of people that I can make an impact on, and I can help them with what they want to achieve. Same with investors. So that would be clients, agents, anybody that I can make a difference. I mean,
Got it.
it's exciting whenever they come to you and they go, hey, I'd like to do this. And I go, wow, this is what I can add to that, and help them do that. Whereas before I would meet people and I'd go, hey, you could do this.
Right.
And
Right.
then they're like,
Got
oh,
it. Got
how?
it.
And then I tell them how. I tell them. Whereas the other way, when you're
Got it.
mentoring, it's like you just give them a nugget and they know what to do with it. And that's more exhilarating. I don't know, it's more fulfilling.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the big picture doesn't fit on everyone's wall, right? So
That's right.
if I have someone that has a small wall, I can only put, you know, the picture where somebody else shows up and goes, holy cow, Lorraine, I have this massive, like we're talking drive-in size wall.
Right.
Do you have a picture for this? Because this is, and I'll go, what do you see? And they'll tell me, and I go, oh, what if you added this and this?
Right.
They're already there.
Right.
I can be
Right.
the tipping point instead.
Wow. Well, that is powerful, and I appreciate you sharing that. So I've got to ask the question: what's next? What's next for Team Jordan, for Lorraine Jordan? What are you excited about these days?
Finding people that are looking for the tipping point. Finding people that are either, they've achieved greatness and they're at that point where it's like, oh, I don't know if I have it to keep going. I don't know if I want to keep going. I don't know, or I'm starting out and I just want to get there as quickly as possible. How can I do that? Because I just think that there's such I don't know, there's that, like I said, there's the people that are close to going, you know, I'm 50 and I could retire because I've invested and I've done well, but I have so much knowledge and so much to give.
Right.
But I'm like, they want to be inspired. They want to be around other people that are like that. And then there's these other people that are starting, but they respect that there's people out there that know. It's not like, oh, I know and everyone else doesn't know anything because I'm going to, do this technology thing or this social media thing that's going to crush everybody. Well, go ahead. But if you're looking for other people that, know what they're doing and have the relationships, right? I always go, these people have an amazing amount of relationships and people skills,
right,
where some of the new people have like the technology and, a little bit less relationship because they haven't been face to face. If they have, it's been on Zoom.
Right.
Not even Zoom, with some other
Yes.
Snapchat.
Yes.
Right. Whereas if you can bring the two together, to me, respect that everybody's in a different place. Everyone has something different to bring to the table. That's where the magic happens.
And this brings you back to you as a connector.
Yes.
Right. Right. All the way.
Love that part. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what's next is just looking for more people that want to make a difference in the world, an impact. Right. Gary Keller has this thing where he believes that you find 5 great people to pour into. And you pour into those 5 great people, and then you teach them to pour into 5 people. And then you teach them to pour into 5 people. And it's like 7 million impact when you go down 10 levels, I think it was. It was crazy. It was millions and millions of people impacted from you just pouring into 5 people and then teaching them to pour into 5.
Wow. Wow, that is very powerful. 5, yeah. Wow, there is so much there. There's so much that you've allowed me to be present to. I really appreciate it. There was so much. I had all these questions to ask you about how do you stay client focused and all, but it just came over and over again from as you shared, as you talked, and all I could hear over and over again is what's best for them, what's best for my team, and it's really, I want to share that that's what I was present to in this interview and in our time, and I really appreciate being able to be a part of that. But we've got to ask you before we go. I've got to ask, how do people get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of you and your team?
So, I mean, teamjordan.ca is the website. My email is lj@teamjordan.ca. And I will even give out my cell phone number. Text me first so we can set up a time to actually chat. So I'm not between appointments and I'm totally present because that's important to me. So my cell phone is 705-528-4207.
Wow, that is great. Lorraine, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your passion, sharing your vision, sharing about the Hertz. Really appreciate it. And I know that people will really be able to take that and grow from that. And in the middle of all of the things that are happening to the world, it's inspiring to be able to hear how you're going forward and even being a disruptor while everything's trying to disrupt, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Perfect. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate you having me. And yeah, I hope we made an impact and hope somebody got something great out of this and will make a change in their life for the
Yes,
better.
thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.